Welcome to Taking Action for Equity in Housing. We are so excited to have you here for this important topic with this focus on how we can move and advance equity in our community. Just wanted to go over our goals for tonight. A few. Really want to connect with each other, want to gain some increased understanding of our local context, and this is definitely going to be a very introductory conversation about our local context, or partial, just in that this is a rich and dynamic and complex space. So hopefully you take some new information home, and we all know that is a conversation that will continue and continue over time. We also most importantly want you to tonight to really learn about some local organizations and opportunities for action. You're here because you care and you want to act on that caring. Our mission is to help you in that. So we're hoping that many of you come out of this event with some specific next steps in mind. They could be the ones speakers here propose. They could be others that come to you over the course of the event, but we really are here to help you think tonight with others about how to pursue equity in the housing space. So here's the event flow. We're going to start with some brief introductory conversations among ourselves. We're going to then get concise presentations from our great three organizations present. We're going to whet your appetite. That is the Columbia Housing Center, Equity for HC, and the Housing Affordability Coalition. After that appetizer, you get two opportunities to speak at greater length with these organizations in breakout rooms. So we'll do one for 20 minutes. You'll come back to our main gathering and you can choose another organization to engage with at that point. And then we'll come together and we'll close. You'll see that this event is being recorded. That is with the intent that we can share this information and connection to these organizations with folks who are not able to join us at this time. The breakout rooms and conversations in them will not be recorded, just this main room. I'm just going to say a few quick things about the kind of culture we're hoping for this evening together. Really hoping to really relate to each other as people and simulate being in a room together as much as we can. So ask that you turn on your camera if you're able. Make sure your name is right so folks can address you by that instead of 24972. And be ready to, really ready to speak with others. Hope that we can all acknowledge that there are different ways to understand equity and different ways to act on it. We're also talking about home, housing, neighborhoods, relatedly schools, which means, and we're adding race on top of that. So that means we're talking about our deepest hopes for our families, and in many cases, pretty traumatic experiences. So these are big topics. So I ask that everybody just proceed with honesty, care for themselves, care for others, and that knowing that we are all coming here with an intent to be helpful in this project of advancing equity in housing, that hopefully we can remember that and assume good intent when we're in conversation with each other. So with all that housekeeping out of the way, would love to get a sense of who is in the room. So we're going to do some really fast questions to get a sense of that via poll. I'm going to open one up right now to help us get to know what you've seen, experienced about inequities in Howard County related to housing. It can also be what you've heard. And then also generally how well you feel like you know this space. You should see a poll on your screen now. Okay. So here's the results. You can see that. Okay, so 73% experience or hear about inequities in housing, either some or all the time, frequently. And we've got 13% in the, I don't think I've experienced this or heard about it, and 13% in the maybe space. And then we've about half of folks here are deeply knowledgeable about local housing issues. And 53% know a little, curious, want to learn. Library loves you. That's a good camp to be in. Thank you for stepping into some learning tonight. Now I'm going to launch a quick second poll in this space. So the first one was sort of like, what have you experienced? What do you know? These two questions are really about, what are you doing in this space right now? So are you currently taking action to advance housing equity? And then are you connected to a group, or is this something you're doing more on your own if you have started? Okay, going to show you guys what you guys had to say here. So are you currently taking action to advance housing equity? About a third have said not yet. Another almost 20% have said a few times, once to a few times a year. And then about 50% of you are highly active. And then connected to a group, about 50% are not connected to a group. 12% in leadership, and about a third are members currently. Okay, thank you. That is helpful to me and our speakers tonight as we think about engaging with you tonight. So first order of business, as a friend of mine in the county likes to say, connection before content. Want to start with an opportunity for you guys to briefly connect with each other. We're going to be going for groups of 3, and we're going to do that for actually just 5 minutes. It's a chance for you to introduce yourself and share why you care about equity issues in housing. Why take the moment to connect? It's because I'd say, advocacy and organizing is not easy work. Connection to each other is what powers us through. Also, this is an opportunity to strengthen our equity advocacy community for you to get to know someone new in that space. We'll be stronger together if we know each other more. So with that, I will be working with my team to send you into breakout rooms. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a positive experience connecting to some other folks here. Hope a good number of you met somebody new or had a refreshing and revitalizing conversation with someone you have known before. Now we get to get into the heart of the conversation tonight. You're going to hear from 3 advocates in our community. They're going to introduce themselves and their organizations, share some motivating information about housing in our county, and give you a little bit of information about how you can take action with them. So again, this is the appetizer. After these short presentations, you're going to get to pick an organization to speak with in a breakout room for 20 minutes. We'll come back and you'll get to pick a second organization. So you can listen with that in mind. Who do you want to talk with some more? We are going to start with Andy Masters of the Columbia Housing Center. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here tonight. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces and meet some new folks that are, here and obviously interested in housing equity. My name's Andy, and I am the executive director of the Columbia Housing Center. So many folks have a Columbia story, a story of why they or their parents moved here, a great interaction with a neighbor who speaks a different language from them, or a chance encounter with someone that changed their perspective. Columbia is a special place with deep and intentional roots in racial and economic integration. Several years ago, I was looking to move closer to family from my current home in Pikesville. I valued the diversity in religion, race, and ethnicity that we lived in, and was looking to make sure that my next home would offer my kids the same opportunity to meet and befriend others who came from a variety of backgrounds. We checked out many homes in lots of neighborhoods, using the school demographics as a proxy for neighborhood diversity. When we ultimately settled on a house in Owen Brown, we were thrilled by so many of the amenities that the community had to offer. We lived on the lake with a grocery store across the street. The school's library and swimming pool were all within walking distance. But shortly after we signed our lease and started to meet folks, we heard a concerning narrative, one that centered on what we needed to be cautious of. The schools are not that good. Always lock your car at night. Be careful walking around the lake. It was worrisome, but as someone who spent his entire career working in Baltimore, I thought it couldn't really be that bad. As it turned out, it wasn't. The kids made great lasting friendships with classmates from a variety of backgrounds. We never experienced anything but a fantastic community with great people. So what was behind those narratives? More important, where did they come from and what was driving them? Perhaps the most important question, what can be done to change the story about Columbia's older villages? The Columbia Housing Center is a new nonprofit with a mission to champion and sustain thriving, racially integrated communities throughout Columbia. Modeled after the Oak Park Regional Housing Center just west of Chicago, the Columbia Housing Center will promote this mission through a set of services and educational opportunities. In the coming months, we'll be launching the first of these in the form of a rental referral service. Through the Housing Center, potential renters will learn about the history of Columbia and our organization's mission to promote racial integration. They will then be provided a list of available rental units that meet their needs and also promote racial integration. We're really excited about the opportunity to have an impact of seeing Jim Rouse's mission move forward, a mission that included racial and economic integration, a mission where people from all races, creeds, and backgrounds could live, work, and play right next to one another. And so the Housing Center is a new organization. We are sort of in our startup phase still, looking to launch in the coming months, but we'll definitely need your help as community members, as advocates, and as people who care about racial equity in housing. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more in my breakout session, share a little bit of data that makes the case for the need for the Columbia Housing Center, and hear from you, your stories about what it's been like to live in Columbia and in Howard County, and any experiences you or people you know have had around those concerning narratives that just prove to be false and untrue about why certain parts of Columbia are not for certain people. So thanks for being here. Thanks for inviting me to the library system, and I really look forward to the rest of the night.
Andy, thank you very much. You actually have a minute or two left. Do you want to give us any teaser of some of that information about why the Housing Center is necessary?
Sure. So we've been working with the Center for the Othering and Belonging Institute out of the University of California at Berkeley. And this is an organization, and one of their research projects has been to measure segregation at the census tract level across the country. So I'll be going over some data that shows that from the period between 1980 to 2020, Columbia has become more and more segregated, with fewer tracts being racially integrated and an explosion in tracts that have become severely racially segregated. So really excited to sort of share that data on a pretty map that always makes people sort of lean into the conversation. I think a lot of folks think we've done this already. Columbia was planned around this. Why are we having this conversation? But the data just frankly shows that, we started off in one direction, and through a variety of forces, both seen and unseen, we are not where we were originally planned to be.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from Daniel Burns of Equity for HC. Thank you for being with us, Daniel.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, Howard County Library System, with an outstanding neutral ground to have intelligent conversations, the right place to learn. Books are important, so everybody make sure you read your books. And thank you so much, Katie. You are a welcomed addition to our community. I'm super happy that you're here. So you and your beautiful family, we're glad you're here. And I say it that way because I mean it, but also this is my community. I grew up here. My family got here in '79, went to Faulkner Ridge before it closed, and graduated from Wild Lake. Actually went to college, came back and taught in the school system. So I know from being a student and then being here as an educator. When you're an educator and you dive deep in, if you have those relationships with students, they come and they tell you what's going on at home. So knowing what's going on from a personal level, and then from a teacher perspective, a group of my colleagues and I put together Equity for HC, our nonprofit, which really is equity for Howard County. All of our students in our classes thrive, but it's all because we apply an equity approach. But then for us to be able to figure out how to expand that into the rest of the community through policy, we have a grassroots organizational effort branch, Columbia Community Care, where so many of you have been putting your money where your mouth is and caring about whether people have food and basic necessities. And so we've been providing, we're about at $1 million and 1 million meals that we've given out. And it's been based on the incredible support from a diverse and loving community. And so we also we've developed a plan, a community development plan that is it speaks to the needs of those of us who experience the most of the worst and the least of the best. We know what we need. It's kind of like go to the doctor. The doctor should ask you what you need. So we're the folks that know what we need, and we have coupled that with a plan that's inclusive, where we look to collaborate with other folks in the community to make that plan strong and come to fruition. How's that, Katie?
You guys are helping me feel like Oprah tonight. So Daniel, I know your plan is multifaceted. Tell us a little bit about the housing prom.
Okay, great. So knowing what it's like, our basic mission is to make sure that we figure out ways to provide access to ownership opportunities. And so wealth building in this country, it happens through home ownership. And so we have a plan. I'll spare you the details right now, but I mean, the idea is that we want to figure out how to address what the Brookings Institute shares, this incredible wealth gap. And so we have ideas of how those who again have not been able to benefit from what is here to build wealth for families, for us to be able to participate in that in a meaningful way.
Thank you very much. Okay. And finally, we have Jackie Eng of the Housing Affordability Coalition. Thank you, Jackie.
Can you hear me now? Now you can hear me? Sorry. All right. Let's have some slides real quickly. I want to pull up because I have some data. And I just wanted to, I'm going to run through it very quickly. And all I want to do is, many of you I know, I've heard of, you know this stuff, but I think it doesn't hurt to be reminded of the facts within our community in terms of the need for affordable housing. And the Housing Affordability Coalition just believes strongly that the sustained, our housing policies in the past are sustaining racial and socioeconomic disparities in our community, which you all have seen, we see, but I'm just going to try to put a picture around it. And we know that, as Daniel and Andy have said, we have de facto segregation. Nearly 1 in 5 residents is Black, but many neighborhoods, there's only 1 in 20 Blacks in the neighborhood. The majority of our African Americans are concentrated on 12% of county land. And just with COVID and this past history, there are absolutely some of the issues of health and housing and employment. There are significant disparities between within our African American and our communities of color. So there are 9,000 households in our community with incomes below $60,000, and there's only 2,600 affordable units for those. For every 10 low income houses, there's 3 affordable units. 1 in 4 renter households, almost 7,000 households, not people, but households in our community, pay 50% or more of their income on rent. And that's gone up 33% in just the last 10 years or so. The issues are, the gap is getting larger. In terms of Blacks in our community, there's 1 Black person for every 3 white people, but in our community's homeless system, there are 3 Blacks for every white person, which to me just really underscores the disparities in our community and the need in our community. But this isn't all about racial issue. We have our seniors that we have 4,500 low-income households or seniors and only 1,000 affordable units. For every 10 low-income senior households, there's 2 affordable housing rents. As we age, this is only going to get to be worse if we can't find more affordable housing. And then the people with disabilities in our community, adults and children, 15% of them, of our households here have at least one person with a disability. They spend 6% more on their disposable income rent than do others, because these apartments are harder to find, they cost more. And to put that in perspective, many of them are living only on Social Security income, and that's that's like 12% of the area median income. We have people across the spectrum, across our community, all facing various situations that are just they're struggling. And it's to me, as a member of this community, it's embarrassing and frustrating, and it makes me angry. So I am delighted that there are others in the community that are willing to step up and learn more and become part of this, creating a stronger voice for us. Let me just tell you a little bit about the Housing Affordability Coalition. We actually initiated our work in January of 2019. We did so after redistricting, education redistricting in the community. And there is always this tension between education and housing, but the anger and the frustration and the pitting the two against each other. Several of us came together and said, we would like to try to do something to change the dynamic, to change the conversation. And so that was the very roots of how we got started. And we believe strongly that housing is as critical a piece of infrastructure as is education, as is health, as is economic security, employment, and certainly mobility. These things are all important. They all go together. We cannot have a healthy, thriving community if we don't have every one of these pieces in really good order. So our mission, our purpose in the coalition is we want to create community understanding so that we have good policy decision making, and we want to create a community-wide recognition that the county's economic vitality, in addition to helping people that we know need our help, our community needs to broaden its population base. It needs more housing, and among that, it needs more affordable housing. And you can see the ways that we have gone about our work over the past 3.5 years. And I will close with, I look forward to talking with you further. We have 2 immediate action opportunities, one of them this week, for those of you who are diehard and want to get involved right away. And that's the Roslyn Rise redevelopment project, which I'll talk a little bit more about in our breakout session. And then the state delegation, we anticipate, will be putting out a draft piece of legislation that would create a housing opportunities trust fund for the county. And we can talk about that a little bit more, and that will be happening at their November public hearing. And with that, that's where I am.
Much, Jackie. So you guys have a hard choice in front of you in that there is such an interesting range of issues and perspectives on the table here. We've got examining kind of trends in Columbia and strategy and action around including advocacy and policy work around how to shift that towards greater integration. You've got a conversation around housing as a tool of wealth building and what structural and policy things do we need to look at to advance that. And additionally, you've got Jackie talking about kind of a wide range of county and state policy and advocacy opportunities. So I wish you a wonderful conversation in breakout room 1. I'm just going to get a little bit of feedback from you all as we close out tonight. I'm going to launch one last poll. I'm curious about what you guys learned, if you encountered some new information, and how these conversations inspired you. Okay. And see that for a event really centered on connection points, I'm glad to see that people encountered some new information, ranging from a little to a lot. And then can see that about half folks here are in the space of wanting to continue to learn. 40% want to take action with one of the organizations present, and some others are thinking of taking action another way. Thank you for sharing on those points. The library system, this is one event among many. We offer hundreds of high quality educational opportunities a year, and we hope that those who are interested in continuing to learn will continue to learn with us. I also want to make sure that everybody here knows that we just launched an Equity Resource Center at the Central Branch. It's on the second floor, and it's over 9,000 titles with a intersectional broad sense of equity, really trying to touch on a broad understanding of what that means for our community. And we are guided in some of the material selection by our Racial Equity Alliance. Some folks are on today who have been part of that, and we greatly appreciate the help. So if you are interested in, you can just show up there and get some good materials. We are so fortunate that right now, embedded in that Equity Resource Center, thank you, Allison, on the second floor of our Central Branch on South Entrance Road, we have the Undesigned the Red Line exhibit back in the library. This is a powerful, dense exhibit full of information with some interesting opportunities for interacting with the exhibit. And a lot to discuss. So we regularly host public tours. You can also talk to us about scheduling a tour specifically for a group you're working with. If you want to have a focused conversation with some fellow volunteers in an organization, if you want to bring some students there from a youth group you're connected to or a school, we have flexibility and a strong commitment to work with you to make that happen. We can kind of combine exploring the content with discussing the content. I also want to let you know that this event tonight is part of our Racial Equity and Local Action series offered with support from the Horizon Foundation. We have two excellent events coming up to close this series. So on the evening of November 15th, we're going to hear Dr. Pedro Noguera speak about education and civil rights in the 21st century. I hope some of the educators here come on back for that. There's going to be a Q&A and a short opportunity for community discussion as part of that event. A week later, on November 22nd, we're going to be having a Taking Action event focused on educational equity. So I believe, I'm just going to thank you for other items in the chat. I'm just going to enter in those two upcoming events. Those and a survey to give us any additional feedback will be coming to you in an email. And we'll also include contact information for the organizations who presented today and anything else they request I put in that email. So I'll be looping back with all the presenters and making sure you have the tools you need following this conversation to really put it into practice. When we have the excerpts of this on YouTube, I'll also share it out with you guys so that you can share it with others who you think would have benefited from the content tonight. I firmly believe that when we talk about some of these big issues that are regional and national and in many ways old, it is really helpful to hang on to each other and to make sure that we are remembering instances of people who struggled for this work in the past, who have been successful in realizing new things for their communities. And we wanted to end on that kind of note. And we are thankful for Daniel Burns, who volunteered to step up and send us off with a message of hope.
Thank you, community, for being here tonight. Like you could be anywhere, but you're here because you care. So thank you for being here, and Katie again for providing a platform for the community to have this conversation, and to your fearless leader, who I think that all others should look to as an example of how to truly lead. That's Tonya Akins. A message of hope. So we all, like, during these times, you hear people saying this a lot too, like during these times, like this is the time that we need to come together. Like, but really, I think that we are incredibly fortunate to be in a place that's insulated from a whole lot of stuff, but not from everything. There is an urgency of now. This may not be something that happens inside of everybody's household. I mean, you may not experience it directly, but Black males are 14 times more likely to die from gun violence, right? And they ain't calling nobody's, I ain't saying whose fault it is, but that means that I gotta go to 14 times more funerals. And so when you guys hear about stuff in the local news about a shooting, man, I'm directly impacted by that. I know those kids. Those are my children's friends. I know them by name. I've known some of them since they were babies. And these are not imports from East Baltimore or whatever people like to think of. No, this is our community. Kids that grew up on the bike path and would go to the fair and all the stuff that it's our community. So there's an urgency of now that we do something to make our community better than what it is. And lives are at stake. Now, when you get to housing, how do you do that quickly? Man, very quickly, we need people to think differently than we have been thinking. And that's the biggest hurdle, is for us to think about things differently, because we're used to being given the answer for how housing is just going to be. And that's not the approach that we need to take. The hope that I have, so to get to the hope, Katie, is that seeing the folks that are here on this screen gives me the hope that we don't have to figure this out by ourselves. We have a very strong community of really good people that we have to depend on, and it will take all of us together to move forward. It is, I am encouraged because of the folks that are here. And we just need everybody to continue to keep on pushing. Laura said it earlier to me. If we have an idea that we all want to get done, we get in the room and it's going to be hard to figure out how to get it done. But if we all care, we're going to keep on pushing to make sure that we get that done. So with the words I quote Laura for my closing tonight, that's what gives us hope. We just have to, all of us do care, and let's just keep pushing together. And thank you, Katie, for the opportunity to speak tonight. And thank you, everybody.
Good. Thank you all till we meet again. Be well.